Hi guys, this tutorial is about creating a form. So I'll show you how it needs to be done. So first page we create is login.php where the login page will be, and then we create the index.php where your main index file is. And we create the functions.php where you will have all the functions, and you will also create the dashboard.php which is where um, the user will be able to see the dashboard once he's logged in. Okay, so let's see. So here is the index.php. First we do is we require the functions.php, so you get the functions included. Uh, you must note that in any scenario we are not going to use uh, header function to direct the user to a different page, or everything has been done all in index.php. So what we're doing here, we're only doing two things here. First, in case if the user is logged in, so this function checks if the user is logged in. If he is logged in, then include the dashboard.php. Okay, if he is not logged in, then include the login.php file, which means show the login form which has all the different options. Okay. All right, so let's suppose he is not logged in. Okay, so if he is not logged in, then we are going to include this file. Okay, so the moment you go ahead and go to this login form page, then the login.php file will open. Now, how this login form login.php has different options like register, login, lost my password, and everything. Okay, so these all things are there. Okay, now now how is this created? How is this file created? So if you go to login.php, you'll start from here. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to start this session. So this function starts a session, and why we are doing this is because once we test if he is logged in, then we are going to use a variable called session, um, which is a global variable, which is $underscore session, and we'll assign a value inside that. I'll just show it to you how. If you go to functions.php, you'll see that yeah, okay, so we're saying that $underscore session user login is equal to logged in, so put a value inside this. Okay, so if he's logged in, then we put a value inside this session, and once uh, he logs out, then we destroy the session like so. We destroy the session. So this function basically destroys the session. So we'll get into the detail of it. I just wanted to explain to you as to why we're using this particular function over here. Okay, so that's the basic job of the session start, is that you start the session and you check the condition whether there's a value inside a $underscore session. If there is, that means user is logged in. If there isn't, which means user is not logged in, go ahead and destroy the session. Go ahead and destroy the session if the user clicks on log out. Okay, so that's that. Now there's a simple form here, starting from here. So this is a div with the ID login and login div, and then there is this h1 tag, which is basically containing a link, and which is here. So this is basically to achieve this particular code over here. And if you see, there's a CSS applied to it, background image. So this WordPress image is a background image of this particular link, and we've written some CSS code which allows you to get this as a background image in the center, and so codes. Okay, so I'm not going to get into detail of the CSS. This tutorial is basically to discuss the form. Okay, all right, now next is a p class, which is then an error message, login failed. Okay, So, and then there is another one, p tag with the success message. So these two variables will be echoed in case if there is any error message for the login, and in case if it's successful, then this particular variable will have the value. So these variables are defined in functions.php on the top. Okay, and later on in the functions that we have written for these, we will go ahead and assign a value to them depending on the condition. So you will get to know about them a little later. Now the first thing is we've called this function which is can show login form, which checks certain conditions to show to check whether we need to show this particular form or not. So there is one form over here which is the login form, and then there is a register form. So login form is for this particular page, and then there is a register form for this particular page, and then there is lost password form, which is when we click on the lost password. So these three different forms will be displayed basis the condition. So all of the forms are not going to be displayed, all these three forms are not going to be displayed all in one go. They will be displayed depending on the condition that we check. So for the very first form, we are going to check whether we should display that or not by using this function can show login form. So let's see what's there inside this function. Okay, so this function checks if the $_get action is set, and if $_get is action is equal to login. If this is so, or if action is set and action is equal to logged out, or if action is not set. So basically what this $_get is coming from is from here. If you scroll down in this particular form itself, just below, if you see, there is a link that we have created. Okay, and this link is basically for register or lost my password, and then there is another one over here in the second form which says login. Okay, and here as well. Okay, so basically if you click over here login, you see this is the link. So if the user clicks on login, so basically this function means that if the user clicks on login, then you show this form, which is very true. Then you should have this form and user clicks on login, and an action is equal to login. Okay, so when $_get is basically a global super global which will uh, have a value whatever is set over here. Okay, so what we are doing with this link is that we are saying that if someone clicks on login, then the href is equal to self. Is basically we are using this particular PHP cell, which basically gives the address of the same page as we are in. Okay, so we're saying that self plus action is equal to login. So self is giving us path up until here. This is what is displayed by self, and the remaining part, action is equal to login, is displayed by hard coding it. Okay, so if someone clicks on login, which is here, then this page should be displayed, and that is the condition being checked over here. Okay, this is the condition that's being checked over here. If it's logged in or if it's logged out, which means once user logs in, if he clicks on log out, and this link you will find in dashboard.php. Let's see here. See here, this is the link for logout. Okay, So if user clicks on the logout, then it should go to this href. Okay, so let's try logout. This is href, which is self. Self will display this part, this URL, and then add action is equal to logged out. See, this is where it's coming from. Okay, so if that condition is met, then also we want to show the login form. So we need to show the login form in case if the user is logged out, or if the user clicks on this login link. Okay, so in these two conditions it should be shown. Or if the action is not set, which means if this part is not there, this action part, then also we need to show the login form. See, it's shown. Okay, so just to recap, 3 conditions we need to check to show the login form. First, if action is equal to login, which will be coming from this link when we clicks on it, and if action is equal to login, then show this login form. Second, if he is logged out, which means if he clicks on this link, action is equal to logged out, then show the login form. And third, if there is no action set, then show the login form. Okay, so that's the meaning of this particular function, can show login form. Okay, next form. So this is the first form. Second form is register form. Okay, so when will this be displayed? So there are 2 conditions we need to check. If action $get action is set, and if $get action is equal to register. So how is this coming from? Is coming from yeah, it's coming from over here in the above form, just beneath the first login form. Okay, so this says register. It says that if someone clicks on register, which is here, then action is equal to register, which means self plus action is equal to register. So go ahead and take me to this particular URL if someone clicks on register. Okay, so you can see over here register. All right, now so go ahead and show this particular form. Somebody clicks on register, the URL will change, and that's when this condition will be met. Action will be set, $get action will be set, and $action will be equal to register, and that's when this form will be shown. Okay, now the third form, which is lost password form. So again, similar situation, this code over here in the login, just beneath the login form, it says lost my password. If somebody clicks on lost my password, then action will be equal to, see, we click over here, action will be equal to lost password. Okay, action will be equal to lost password, and the $action will be set, and once it's set, it will show this form, which is resetting the password. All right, now we're going to get into the detail of each of these form. The first form, which is a login form, this form, it says form id is equal to login form, action is equal to echo server PHP self. This means that when form is submitted, it is going to display the same page, which is this. It's not going to take you to another page. Then label username input. Now here value is equal to echo get value user login. Okay, so name is user login, get value is a function in functions.php. What does it do? Okay, it takes a variable name, so name is user login for this particular input, and it returns it actually checks the condition first. If $_post is set, so if it is set, which means if this field has the value, then the get value will be equal to $_post name, which means value will be equal to whatever is input, whatever is put inside this box. If it is not set, then it will be blank. Okay, so basically this means that uh, when we pass this, if user has put some input, okay, then it will have that value. If it isn't, then it will be blank. Okay, and why we are doing this? So that if user does not enters all the information, then this should come back when you click on login, whatever he's put that as the input. Okay, now get error user, and similarly for user email and user password as well. Okay, when the page is submitted, it will auto populate whatever he had input earlier. Then there is errors. So get error function is called in all these three scenarios. So get error function, it takes an again the similar kind of variable name, and it checks if the form is submitted. If it is not submitted, then don't execute this code, and if it is submitted, then you create an error of array. Use when name is equal to user login, then display this. If name is equal to user pass, then display this, and so on. This over here will return a value. Okay, it checks get value if it is set or not. Okay, so if this is set, which means if it has a value inside this, if it is not empty, then go ahead and display the error, which means if user has not entered anything, then you need to display error, like for example username is empty. So printf replaces this $sign with this error name. So whatever name we pass over here, for example we pass user email name, it's going to go and check user email is empty, so it comes over here and it will be displayed in this span tag. Yes, see this, it's displayed user is empty. Okay, so similarly for the other options as well, but we have also mentioned over here user invalid error. Okay, so we put this variable and we've taken that as a global variable. In case if the email is invalid, then the error will be displayed over here, which is done in another function which I'll tell you later. Okay, so similarly code have been used for the other options as well. Okay, now let's go to functions.php and see what's going on there. So first we define the constants. We define the constants. DB name, go to login form. Login form is basically the name of our database. If you check, see, this is database, and we have already created a table. You know how to create a table through command line. Okay, so we've created this table. It has these values, field names, user, login, pass, and so on. Okay, now the root is the constant db user is equal to root, constant db password is root, constant db host is localhost. Okay, now we create a database connection over here using MySQLi class. This is the object. Now it will have all the properties available of MySQLi class. This is instantiating the object con and we use the constant that we have created over here. Okay, next we check if the form is submitted. because WP submit will have a value if the form is submitted. If it is submitted, then if WP submit is equal to login. Why? Because the name of this first form, the login form, is the value is login. So when this form is submitted, the login form, WP submit will be equal to login. So if the login form is submitted, then call the WP admin login. If the register form is submitted, which means this form here, if this is submitted, then call the WP admin register function. And if the WP submit reset form is submitted, which is this form, then call this function. Starting from this, WP admin login. So in this function, what we're doing here, in fact, before even we log in, we need to first register a particular user. So in register, we'll check that user register name should not be empty, which means user register name, this input username should not be empty, and obviously the email should not be empty and the password should not be empty. So we're checking that name, password and email, we're checking that this should not be empty. If it is not empty, we're first escaping the strings. So we'll check that we'll first of all take these values into variable name, username, password and email into these variables, but we'll first escape them. Escaping means that sometimes user can enter values like quotes 1 is equal to 1, some other quotes, to do a SQL injection and get all the values from the database. To stop that, we use, so if we use this, then these value will be escaped, which means it will not be entered like this, it will be entered like this into the database, like this. Okay, all right. And there is the method of our MySQLi class. See this. So there is this method called real escape string. Let's find that. Real escape string. You'll be able to find it somewhere here. Okay, if you check it. So use that, okay, to escape it, and then we check if the username exists or not. So we use a query. We store this query into a variable SQL username. Select all from WP users table where user login is equal to user registered name. Okay, and then we do a query like this, MySQL query. This is a function to do a query, and then we store the result of MySQLi numbers, which means if it is true, then MySQLi numbers will have some value. Okay. Similarly, we check for email if it exists or not, and we also check if the email is valid. So use a filter var function with the option as filter validated email will check if the email is valid or not. If it is valid, then it will return true. So if it is not valid, then global username invalid error, the this particular variable that we had declared earlier, it will now have a value inside of it. Okay, So now it will have a value, enter valid email, and this is what will be used in our login form. See this value will be displayed here. So if user does not enter a valid email, it will have an error like so. Wait, see, enter valid email. Okay. Now next, now we'll check result check username, which is this. If it has a value, which means if it is more than greater than 0, then that means that username exists. Okay, so obviously you can't register in case if the username already exists. You can't have two usernames with the same name, so it'll display the error similarly. Okay, example, let's see what user we have already. So login form, WP users, browse. So we have Salim as a user, so let's try that. Salim. Mostly you're not logging in, we are registering. See, it says username already exists. So this error, global variable, by using global term next to a variable, we are actually able to access that particular variable which may be defined on top, and that means the value of that variable will change if we use global, will change globally. So we put this value and we display it there. Similarly, we check for if email exists, display this value, because we can't have two email addresses same for two users, two different users. Then we hash the password. So whatever password we've received from the, if all these conditions are met, then, which means if it is a valid email and if the username does not exist, if the email does not exist, a new one completely, then we also hash the user's password. So we use MD5 to hash it. Then this time is equal to time function, stores the current timestamp. Okay, then we use a SQL query, insert into this table, user login, user password, user nice name. These are all the fields over here. And then values, enter these values, the registration name, password, user registration, email, time, etc. So since we are not asking the user for all the other values like user URL, user registered, we are just putting that as none. We're putting this variable time over here, which generates the current timestamp, so that whenever we register a user, then automatically a time should come over here. Okay. And then if that is true, if we have been able to successfully do this, then it should display a success message, user registered successfully. Okay, so let's try that. Colon password. See, got a message, user registered successfully. Okay, else whatever the error messages will be displayed as to why we are not able to register that particular user. Okay, this is basically done by the register function, and similarly when we try to log in, when the WP admin login function is called, we checks that whether we have all these three values, username, email, and password. If it is, then escape all these input, use a prepared statement like we have discussed over here. Similarly, username, email, password, and execute it. Okay, so when we execute it, in fact, I'm sorry, I've not explained to you what is a prepared statement. The prepared statement basically does the query from the database and and keeps all the information ready like a cookie. Okay, so that to avoid MySQL injection, because if we insert the user's input over here in the query, and if the user types some command inside this username, if he writes a command like select all or something like that, then that query will be run. So to avoid that, we first run a query, prepare a statement, which is this connection prepare. So prepare is a method of MySQLi. Let's see. Yeah, prepare method. What does it return? It returns a MySQLi statement. So MySQLi statement is a class. So MySQLi statement is a class. Okay, so then once you do that, once you use this prepare method, then it will return the class, and then MySQLi class will be equal to statement. Okay, so we select all from WP users, where user login is equal to question mark, user email is equal to question mark, user password is equal to question mark. This question mark will be replaced by these variables when you execute it, when you use the execute method of MySQL of another class, which is MySQL statement. MySQLi statement. So if we use the prepare method of MySQLi class, it will return another class, which is MySQLi statement, which is here. And when we take that into a variable, statement will be equal to this class, which means the methods, which is the execute method, which is here, will be available. So we can do like a statement arrow executed to access this method. Okay, so when you use this execute method, then automatically this will be equal to question mark user login, this will be equal to this will be equal to this. So here we have taken a variable and we have stored these value into this variable. Okay, so the result, okay, get result is another method, okay, which returns the result which we stored in result, and then result numRows method will return the number of rows in case of the match is found. So again, we validate the email, we check if the match is found. If it is, okay, then we get the information of all the data of array into row, okay, and we say that the session user login is equal to logged in, username is equal to user login. And that's the reason we started this session over here. Now we're going to use this value. Okay, if it is not, then login failed. Okay, error will be displayed. Okay, so this particular thing will be used in dashboard.php. There's a function we're calling over here, which is WP user logged in. So this is what is going to check if user logged in, if there's a value inside that. Okay, so if this value is set, then do what? So if everything is right, then the value will be set, and what will happen is then if this function is checking that if session $_session has a value, if it has, then include the dashboard.php. This is included now. Now, now this dashboard .php has a couple of things. First is calling the function to check if the user is logged in, and then there's a link. If you click on logout, then it takes you to this particular action, and this particular page is showed, which I explained at the start of the session, at the start of the tutorial. Okay, then the third one, which is the lost my password, which is reset password. This function again is called when user clicks on the reset button. This function will again check if the email that person enters is existing or not using the prepared statement. If it's a valid email, if it is, then user email is equal to user email. Then we create a new password. So unique ID function creates a new password, store it here. Subject, we trim the email that we have received from the user. New password subject, your new password is this particular variable which has the unique ID. This is the new password. Header, you use the mail function to send the email, and we put here a new password sent to your email. So let's try that. Let's see if we have an email set up. So we'll use this email. So that we set new password sent to your email. Okay, so we got this message. If it is not, then show the error message, email does not match. Let's try it. Email does not match. Okay, so this is basically what is done. So this is pretty much the tutorial for creating a complete login system. I'm sorry I could not explain in detail or very well, is because my throat is not well. Sorry about that. Okay, but I hope it helps you. Okay, thank you very much.